video here, we've got the 60 horsepower Trident Canopy model. What we'll be doing is just covering basic operations, what every lever and handle does within the tractor, and we'll also be going through basic maintenance tips. So once you get in the cockpit, there's a little bit going on the left side here. You've got your clutch pedal here, which again, you do not want to be riding just like a car because you will burn the clutch out. There is a little bit of free play as a bit of forgiveness, but you should have your foot off the pedal unless you're operating the clutch. Now this here is your shuttle shift to go forward and backward. If you want to push the clutch in, knock it into forward to go forward. You have neutral here and you've got reverse here. Now, this here is your fuel cutoff switch. When you do turn off the tractor with the key, the tractor will continue to run. You will need to pull this back and let it lock back to kill the fuel and thus kill the tractor. Pop that forward so that you don't accidentally hit it on your way out and break that shaft. Next up here, you've got your handbrake, just like a car. Up is up, down is down. Over here is your sub clutch for the PTO. Now, the only time you use this is if you are stationary with the tractor and you just need the implement on the PTO to stop operating. If you pull this sub clutch up and drive across a paddock, you will burn through the sub clutch's friction plate and cook that clutch. Over here is your PTO speed control. All of our implements run at 540 RPM on all of our tractors. There is another speed setting for 720 RPM, but otherwise, if you need to stop whatever is on the 3-point linkage, you just push that down into the neutral position, but currently we're stopped and between cogs in the gearbox. If it won't move, just roll the tractor a little bit and that'll pop into place. One thing we'd like to reiterate before we move on to show you how to operate the four-wheel drive selector is the importance of the PTO subclutch. Like we said, if you need to stop whatever it is on the PTO briefly, pull that up only while stationary, but before you take off, make sure that is down and you are not burning the subclutch. Now, next up, we have your four-wheel drive selector down here. The tractor should be operated in two-wheel drive. If you need to operate four-wheel drive, make sure it's only in the low range box, which I'll show you in just a sec. But what you'll find is with the key on and the tractor on, you may sometimes hear a beep coming from the dash while you're driving. That's probably because your foot might be bumping that T-handle and engaging the switch. That is not to say you are in four-wheel drive, but it is just food for thought. I've had plenty of people complain about this beep. It is simply just something pushing that up. Now, with regards to four-wheel drive, to know if you are in four-wheel drive, you grab the T-handle, pull that up, and it'll sit. That beep will remain until you come out of four-wheel drive. You may find when you go to engage four-wheel drive that it doesn't want to come up all the way. If that is the case, just roll the tractor forwards and backwards again, a little bit, so that the cogs on the gearbox line up a bit better, and then pull it up into four-wheel drive. So coming around to this side of the cockpit, you've got your front-end loader controls. You push that forward, the bucket comes down, pull that back, bucket goes up, that is tilt left and right. This little lever here opens and closes your bucket. Over here, you've got your low, medium, and high range box. As mentioned earlier, if you're going to operate four-wheel drive, make sure you are in the low box. Over here, you've got the H-pattern shifter, just like a car, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you've got 12 speeds total with your different ranges there. Again, carrying on with the car theme, you've got your foot pedal here, which is the accelerator. You've got your brakes here. Don't ride the brakes, and if you need to, you can split them by popping that tab up and pressing one brake pedal accordingly. Now, up here is your hand throttle. There's two main purposes for this. One, you can use it as a bit of a cruise control if you're crossing a big paddock and you just can set the speed. But more importantly, if you've got an implement on your PTO, you want to be idling the tractor at about 12 to 1500 RPM. So if you've got something like your post hole digger or your backhoe, you'll find what the tractor wants. It'll tell you if it's laboring or you need to give it a few more RPM. You'll find out. Over here, lastly, you've got your 3-point linkage controls. Oh, sorry, not lastly, you've got your 3-point linkage controls. That way is forward on your 3-point linkage. That way is down, and if you pull it all the way back, it'll engage float. So let's say you've got the slasher on behind you and you're on uneven ground. Instead of missing the low spots and skull dragging through the high spots, it'll actually follow the contours of the ground. These two here are auxiliaries. You won't ever use them unless you have something with auxiliary inputs like the Verge mower that has tilt and side shift, or the flail mower with side shift. And lastly is the diff lock, to be used in conjunction with your four-wheel drive here. Now it is a stomp pedal, so you don't have to reach down and press it. You can just step on it, and then as you come out of the hole, that you just grab that, it'll pop itself back out. So just one thing to cover with putting your 3-point linkage into the float position. Because it is a hydraulic valve that opens up, you can meet a bit of resistance trying to pop it back forward. Do not be scared of that. Just pop it forward, it'll come back to neutral. Coming around to the back of the tractor, you've got your 3-point linkage and PTO set up here. From top to bottom, you've got your auxiliaries here, which again, unless you have an implement such as the flail mower that uses side shift, or the verge mower that has tilt and side shift, you will rarely ever use these. This is your top arm for the 3-point linkage. These two are your bottom arms. This is a swing drawbar, which will need to be removed before operating any implements, unless you happen to be towing a trailer behind you. To remove this, it's just a couple bolts holding it in place and a pin with an R-clip locking it in at the bottom, and we pull it out. Over here is your PTO shaft that's hidden under a plastic cover. Most people just leave it off once they've taken it off. It's pretty much one and done. Up here is your hydraulic oil fill point. Over here though is your gear oil fill point for the rear diff and the transmission. And just down here is your dipstick for the transmission. You pull that up, there'll be a dipstick that comes into the bottom of the gearbox. Lastly, before we move around to the front of the tractor, this here is a breather for the hydraulic system. So if you go to lower the front end loader with the tractor off, you may find that oil will sometimes spurt out of here. That is because all the hydraulic lines are closed, certain valves are closed, and it may just overflow a little bit. That is not something to worry about. Just before we move around to the front of the tractor, I will just reiterate with these two breathers for the hydraulic system, if you have the bucket right up in the air and you need to lower it, keep the tractor on, because if it is off, you may find that there may be a little bit too much overflow. It's much less wasteful of any hydraulic fluid. If the tractor is running, you won't actually have anything spit out of that breather.